Good morning, everyone who's joined us here this morning. My name is Liam Lynch. I'm with L2 Cybersecurity Solutions, and this morning I want to talk about uh, cybersecurity scams in the COVID-19 era. So just want to do some quick introduction first. Myself, I have over 30 years of experience working in IT. I started as a developer way back in the 80s before I moved into networking infrastructure and security. Um, One thing I've always believed in doing is providing a service that is simple to understand. I don't use any kind of technical jargons or anything like that, so I keep everything as straightforward and plain English as possible. So my motto is security simplified. Um, I have absolutely passionate about things like security and privacy, and Formula One is my favourite sport. And I also have three dogs who look after me in the scary world that we live in and to keep me exercised, etc. So, just a bit about the company. We specialise in small business support, basically on the whole cybersecurity training and consulting. We provide your staff with training similar to what you're going to see here this morning. And also on the GDPR stuff, I do training and consulting. Similarly, it's, even though GDPR is all legalese and stuff like that, I keep it as simple as possible and easy to understand for anybody. Provide GDPR audits now based on the Cerity platform, which is one of the most comprehensive GDPR auditing applications available. And for businesses that have been affected by the COVID-19, we also do consultancy on business continuity planning and IT disaster recovery testing. And then also we can do an assessment on your IT infrastructure. And if you have WordPress websites, we can help you keeping those secure. So enough about me and the business. Let's get into what we're here for this morning. So we're going to cover off crisis scams. This COVID-19 crisis, has brought about the worst in the criminals out there, and they're going to use that to exploit people to try and get them to part with money. Also then, for people who are new to remote working, things they need to look out for. And then the home working environment, how do we secure that to make sure that it's our corporate assets are all kept nice and secure. We'll cover off that. And then finally, the last kind of 15-20 minutes, we'll have an Ask Me Anything. If you want to send in any emails to support at l2cybersecurity.com. We can also try the chat, which is on the side here of the video. We can try that too. So, I do kind of like to use a bit of humor sometimes in my presentations to try and keep things, a bit real and a bit fun. Might be more interesting for people. So we need to find out what we need to look out for in these crisis scams, what the bad guys are using to try and force us to do the wrong thing and click the wrong thing. So one thing about any kind of crisis, and particularly this COVID-19 crisis, is that everybody wants more information, and everybody is craving information from whatever source they can get it. So they tend to, believe stuff that is sent to them. So if you receive an email like such as this one here, which purports to come from the WHO, the World Health Organization, they're saying here we have this crisis is expanding massively. If you want to find out more, here's a link with some information, and what we have here is just some kind of a dodgy link. However, I've placed the one that was there for safety's sake. So the what they're hoping for is just somebody will just click on that link, and then they'll be taken to a website which will then try to compromise their computer, maybe install some kind of malicious software, which will do, God knows what to your computer, but it's not going to be good. And this is the thing, they're playing on people's the fear, uncertainty, and doubt around this crisis. So, you know, nobody is going to send you an email to provide you with information, no matter what. Like the WHO doesn't actually probably know your email address. So just don't believe that you have received an email from them. And similarly, like you might be try to believe your own government. So you receive an email from your government. So here we have one from apparently from the UK government. And again, this is kind of playing on the fact that we're hearing stuff about our governments are giving people money to assist them in this time of crisis. So what we have here is a scam which shows that you're going to get 128 pounds sterling. So all you have to do is go and click on this link here. Now that link there is a dodgy link, and there's a way of telling that it's a dodgy link is by hovering your mouse over it. No, it won't work on this presentation, but if you receive an email that has a link that looks like this, you can hover your mouse over it. It will then show you, it'll pop up beside the mouse, what is the destination for that link. Where is it going to go to? And you can be certain it's not going to go to a government site. It will look very, very strange. Whereas the one down here, this other link that they provided, is actually a genuine link to the NHS site with details on the coronavirus. So this type of an example is, it's got some kind of legitimacy to it, that it has got a proper link, but the whole thing about them saying, you're getting money here, click on this link, don't fall for these type of scams. If you're going to get your information about coronavirus COVID-19, go to official sources directly. Don't trust anything that comes from an email. Go to the HSE website, go to the government websites to get your information from trusted sources. So in a time of crisis, like usually the emails, they'll come about, here's information about measures to protect you against the infection. We all want to know those type of things. But again, as I say, you shouldn't be expecting this in an email. There's also ones out there that are purporting to have, there's a cure or a vaccine for the virus, and all you have to do is click here to sign yourself up for it. So don't fall for this stuff. This information will be provided through normal mainstream media and from your government and national health services. There's also criminals that are trying to fool you into parting with your money, but under the guise of you giving a donation to a charitable cause that is going to help fight the COVID-19. But most of these type of charitable organizations that are actually doing this work, they will have websites with donation capabilities on those websites. So I would suggest you go directly to those sites, particularly if the email comes in and it provides you with information that it's you can send your donation to a Bitcoin wallet, which is one of these crypto virtual currencies. None of these charitable organizations take money in Bitcoin. So that's probably going to go to some criminal's bank account rather than the charity you're intending it for. So if you receive it, now this applies at any time, not just here in this time of crisis. Any email that comes in that you have not asked for, if it just comes in unsolicited, it contains a link or has an attachment or both, just delete it. It's up to no good. It's going to be malicious. So now moving on to remote working. What specific cyber risks do new home workers face? And some of the people who are now working from home, they've never done so before, so it's completely unfamiliar to them. They may not fully understand what changes have been made in the technology side of things and how their interaction with their office, their company, how that is going to take place from now. And again, this is what the criminals are going to target. They're going to target the uncertainty that people have about their new working environment. So, if they might receive a strange email that, comes and says, you have a voicemail message, and it's got a link to this message, which, the link looks like it's going to an MP3 file, which is a sound file. But again, if you hover the mouse over the link, it will show you it's going somewhere else, to a different and dodgy website. What's been exploited here is the fact that, maybe the person is now working from home, they're no longer at their desk phone, so they now say, oh, this must be some new facility that my company has set up for me to be able to get my voicemails that are going into my desk phone. So that must be the new thing here now for working from home, so I will click on this. So again, don't fall for this. If there is a link in the message and you're not sure about it, hover the mouse over it and check where it's going to. Similarly, is the office sending me stuff by courier? Are they delivering stuff to us in my home office? And again, you'll receive an email and it looks like it's from the proper courier company, but it's got a couple of links that you want you to click here or click there. And again, these are dodgy links. Hover the mouse over and see where they're going. And again, what they're feeding on here is the fact that, you're no longer allowed to go into the office, but there is, sometimes stuff that needs to come from the office to you. So, you might be expecting couriers to be used a lot. So you receive an email like this, you might fall for it. So what I would have to say here is that when you're getting any type of unusual emails that you've never received before, maybe, or you're not sure about, they may appear to be plausible, but whatever they might be, call somebody or message them on instant messaging or WhatsApp or something like that. Get in touch with somebody in the office or who would know about these, how you're working from home, what the circumstances are, what are the procedures. Get in touch with them and find out for sure. Don't go taking any actions based on any emails you might receive in this situation. So now a lot of people are now using Zoom. Now, if you've been following any of my recent weekly videos that I put out every Friday, there is I have significant issues with Zoom as a platform. It's from a data privacy and data protection stance that I have. In fairness to Zoom, they have come out on Friday and said that they are going to work on these issues over the next 2 or 3 months, and I hope they do a good job in it because it seems to be a very good platform. It's just that I have these other issues, but in the meantime, whatever I feel about it, people are using Zoom, and so if you're using Zoom, you need to protect yourself from people from breaking into meetings, because this is one of the things that is now happening. Because Zoom has become so popular, there's now a phenomenon called Zoom bombing, which is where, in some cases, just children or teenagers playing pranks. In other cases, it could be something a lot more malicious. They're basically breaking into meetings because people are not securing them appropriately, and they're either saying nasty things or they're sharing on the screen inappropriate material. For example, there was a Norwegian school that had to stop their classes because a man broke into it and he was naked on the video, which is just awful. So the ways you can secure your Zoom meetings is, a very fundamental one is set a password for the meeting. Now the thing is, obviously people then end up getting that password, the people who want to join it. So if somebody in there, shares on that password, other people can break into the meeting. So there are other steps you can take. The next one would be enable the waiting room, which means that Nobody can come in to the meeting and join the whole conference without the host approving their joining. So a message will come up saying this person wants to join. If the host is expecting them, they'll allow them to join. If they're not expecting them, they can reject them. You should also turn on host-only screen sharing. Otherwise, anybody in the call or in the conference could share their screen outside without any kind of control. So with the host-only screen sharing, it's only the host that will do the screen sharing. If one of the other attendees needs to share their screen, the host can make them a host for the duration of that screen sharing session, and then they can pass the control back to the actual host. Then you should set the disable allow removed participant to rejoin. What this means is that if somebody did break into your meeting, or somebody was acting inappropriately and you kicked them out of the conference, they will not be allowed to rejoin the meeting. You should also then disable file transfer, or if you do need to have some kind of file transfer going on, limit the types of files that are being transferred. You don't want people sharing inappropriate imagery, so maybe turn off stop images going across, but allow documents and spreadsheets. Don't publish the meeting link in a public place, for example on your social media. That really wouldn't be a good idea, because anybody with the link could then potentially break into the meeting. But then again, if you've taken some of the previous actions above, that shouldn't happen. One thing that has been happening a lot with Zoom recently is because they've become so popular, they've also become targeted by a lot of malicious people and also security researchers who are trying to find vulnerabilities in Zoom. And so they're reporting these issues to Zoom, and Zoom are fixing them. So the Zoom client is regularly being updated, and I believe in some cases it has been updated multiple times a day. So, and again, it's in fairness to Zoom that they're doing this. They're taking security seriously, and they're fixing the bugs that are being shown to them. So if the Zoom client asks for an update, when you go to load it up, let it update. It's really, really important that you take the most recent version of Zoom when you're using it. And then, like a certain British Prime Minister who shared a screenshot of him hosting a cabinet meeting on Zoom. He took a screen grab of it and he posted that on his social media. And the screen grab contained information, such as the meeting ID, which again, if somebody hadn't set a password, anybody would be able to then join that meeting potentially. And again, only if you hadn't taken any of the actions mentioned above this on this page. So that's how you can secure Zoom. So I suggest you definitely take those on board for any future Zoom meetings, and not just in a corporate environment, but also in your family environment. If you're using Zoom to chat with family and friends, set these things up. It will be for the best. So then we're on to the working from home environment, and if you're in business and you have set up a bunch of employees to work from home, you need to make sure that their environment at home is as secure as possible, because if they're not taking security at home seriously, that will be a serious risk for you as a business. So the first thing is, the most important one, is that if you're expecting your staff to work from home, the company needs to have provided the device, a laptop or tablet or whatever kind of computing device they need to do their job at home. This should be the company's property and has been configured and provided by the company. The main reason here is if you're expecting the employees to use their own devices, you just don't know what is on those devices. There could be any sort of malware on there, and you cannot trust those devices. So provide your own device. Make sure that the storage on those devices, the hard disk or the memory on the device, is encrypted, so that if the device gets lost or stolen, then the data will be secure on it. Make sure it's set up for using two-factor, or also known as multi-factor authentication. What this would mean is that if the employee is signing into something like email or onto one of your line of business applications, that they provide their user ID and password like normal, but also then they get to provide a second factor, such as a code that might be texted to them or from an app on their phone, or you might have a little security dongle that they plug in and push a button on to signal that they're given the second factor for their authentication to sign into. If you don't take this additional step for the most important accounts, it's possible that if they were compromised at home and somebody got their user ID and password, somebody remotely from them would be able to gain access to their accounts. With the two-factor or multi-factor authentication, this would be very, very, very difficult because it's something that your employee would have, such as, I say, their phone or a little security dongle. Again, because the employees are now working in a different environment, or working from home, they need to be given new and updated guidance on how they should operate and how they're going to use their equipment and how they should get support. So they should be told how they should need to keep their devices updated, particularly something like antivirus software. These all must be kept updated. How to use a virtual private network, which is also known as a VPN. This is the secure way you would have of the employees signing into your systems. They also obviously are going to be working with data. So if they're using any data on their local device, they need to know how to back it up. And then the handling of any personal data, particularly if it's paper-based, how should they secure that, make sure that it's handled appropriately. Now, they will have a home network, usually on their own private internet connection. So we need to make sure that that's properly secured. So the internet router that is provided to them, if they just took it out of the box when their supplier provided it to them and they just plugged it in and did no more to it, it's probably running the default administrative password on the router. The thing with these is that they're usually well known or can be discovered very easily, so you must insist that the router's administrative password is changed from the default. The Wi-Fi name, which is also known as the SSID, this should be changed from the default, again, to try and make it maybe not so obvious where the Wi-Fi is and who it belongs to. You must set up a password to access the Wi-Fi. Being able to just simply go in, discover the Wi-Fi and connect to it is completely unacceptable, because anybody could connect to that Wi-Fi and listen in to any of the data that's traversing the wireless network. So set up a password. Ideally it should be 12 or more characters long, and not just a sequence of numbers or keystrokes, but try to make it something reasonable. And this should be set on the WPA2 PSK setting, or if you've got newer routers, there might be a WPA3 or higher. There should be no smart speakers within listening distance of the employee's home office. You want to be very careful that if the employee is talking on conferences or on the phone to people, that these speakers are not able to listen in on that, just in case. I know Amazon and Facebook and Google and all these guys are saying they're not listening, but there have been occasions when they have been listening and they weren't supposed to be. So make sure you move out and the employee moves out any smart speakers out of the office environment. If they have any other kind of devices like CCTV cameras that are in their homes, in their home office environment, that CCTV, particularly if it's internet connected, should not be able to view any laptop or device that the employee is using, or any paper that might be on their desktops, because if they're connected to the internet, if they were compromised, these cameras, anybody could be looking at what your employee is doing on their laptops or on their desktop. So make sure the home office does not have any CCTV in it. And it's very tempting to allow children to play with these devices, to keep them quiet, particularly after hours. A laptop or tablet, these are company property. They shouldn't be used by anybody else outside of office hours to play games, and even for the employee to stick on Netflix or something else onto it, like our Amazon Prime, to watch movies on. It's a company device, should only be used for company apps and business. So now we move on to the Ask Me Anything section, and I'm going to check my email now, see if anything has come through. I see some chat people, good friends of mine. So, but there's no questions there. So no, I haven't received any emails. What time are we? Jesus, half an hour. So, if you have any questions, I'll stay on here for another minute or two. If you want to stick in any emails to me on anything I've covered there, as I say, I'm available at any stage for a chat on 087 436 2675, or you can get me on email at info@l2cybersecurity.com. Our website and all that is available at l2cybersecurity.com. And what about home monitoring? So if I presume this is monitoring employees at home. So if you have employees at home, you want to be careful about how you monitor, if they're working or not, because they're in their own private residence. They may have, personal, other people in their presence, like their children. So you don't want to be, recording them in their environment without having maybe gotten their consent. It would be very, very important that you say to the employees, if you are going to be monitoring, you need to get their consent to be doing that, and that they fully understand what this monitoring is all about, and how you're going to process that data, how you're going to store that data, what you're going to use that data for. So I hope that answers that. Okay, how do you change the default passwords and Wi-Fi on your home router? So usually, and nearly always the case, if you go to your router, and look at the back of it or underneath it, there will be a label on it. And on that label will be an address like 192.168.1.1 or something along that line. It'll nearly always be 192.168. You go to that address on your web browser from a laptop or PC connected to that Wi-Fi network, and also there will be the admin ID and password. So you then, when you go to that address on your browser, you'll get a login screen. You put in your admin ID and password, and then you're into the settings of the router. So in there should be one of them should be Wi-Fi or wireless network, and you can go to that and change the SSID to be something say unique for your home address. And then under the there should be a security tab, and you go into that, and there should be an option there to change the admin password. Do set it to something that you remember, obviously. But if you do forget, you can always reset the router, but you probably don't want to do that. So try and use a password that you'll remember. Oh, constant monitoring. Oh, that's pretty invasive. I would be very much against that sort of thing. And again, it would have to be with the staff members' consent. But the whole thing around the possibility of somebody else coming into view, particularly we've seen the funny videos now of people on conference calls and their husband or wife suddenly comes into the background while they're taking off a top or they're in a bathrobe or something. It's that's the constant monitoring is I would say very 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 invasive. I wouldn't do that. You've got to trust your staff in some cases, or in most cases. There's a simple way of figuring out if they're doing anything. You set them a task, you set them a deadline, and if they hit the deadline, well, then they're doing their work. That's how I used to work. Now, what's the next one? Small companies. How practical is it for small companies to provide a level of support I recommend? Well, if you're not geared up for it, then there are other people out there that can help you with that level of support. Look, it's going to be something you'll have to pay for. But like what you really don't want to have happen is if you haven't provided your staff with the appropriate setup, if they end up having a data breach, losing client data or personal data of staff, it's that's going to cause problems for you. You need to have addressed these issues somehow. So talk to somebody. There's lots of people out there, consultants that will help. Some might even give you a free kind of half an hour or an hour of a chat over the phone to give you some guidance. So you could look to that. Does the router have to be connected to do this change? You should be able to make the configuration over the wireless, possibly. There might sometimes be a requirement if it's a really well secured router, it might require you to be wired in into the router to make the change. But generally, I've been able to make changes to my own router over the wireless. What you don't want to be able to do is make these changes from the outside from the internet. There might be a setting in there that should be by default turned off, I hope. Is it WAN access or WAN admin access, I think it might be referred to. That would be something you'd want to make sure you turn off. what that means is that nobody from the internet can come in and make the configuration change on your routers. Anything in, nothing in there. So keep them coming if I'm answering your questions. I'm here till 11. Oh, and I suppose I should have also mentioned this video will be available here on YouTube, and I'm also, I think I'm recording it. Please tell me I'm recording it. Yeah, I'm recording it. So I will also put it up on my website along with a copy of the slides. So they'll be available on my website under the blog section of the website. So, what is a good website for checking the security status of new apps? For example, I was recently recommended Crisp app to clear up sound on video calls. Is this safe? Security of apps. There was something I remember coming across. Let me take a look here. Open a new tab. Let me see now. No, this is no, that's for I have something there that checks privacy for websites. All right. That's it. Good. Thank you, Philippa. Crisp is installed on a PC and processing on the actual computer. It's all good. It gets installed as a device. So yeah, so that's I haven't actually. I think I had heard of Crisp, but I'd not actually used it. So okay, so yeah. So I hope that answers your question. I don't, for checking of security on apps, really what I suggest there is you, before you install an app, you take a look at its, how many installs it's got. If it's got millions and millions of installs and it's got a good rating on it, they're usually reasonable guidance for how good an app might be. As mind you, some of the apps that schools have been using recently for the children who are learning from home now. The children figured out if they give the apps bad ratings, they get kicked out of app stores. So yeah, but usually for a lot of apps, if they have lots and lots of installs, we're talking about like millions in cases. And good ratings, then you should be able to reasonably trust the app at that stage. But also, you might want to just put the name of the app into a Google search with security issues maybe at the end of it, and see if there's any issues that way. So, Philippa, yeah, you're right that some broadband providers, as far as I know, it's probably only Imagine in Ireland that are the only ones that prevent you from getting in access into your home router. You can ask them to make the changes, the support guys to make the changes, but they don't often do that. So for small business owners, they've got to ideally they should be getting a business package, which they can then be properly configured to suit them. The trouble is, business packages do cost more than a domestic package. But if you need to have if you're depending on it, you probably do need to spend that. I'm not sure if Imagine even do a business package, but they should be able to make the changes for you. And the fact that you can't change the administrator password, that might be a good thing. with in that situation. Um, and for the wireless, I don't know. They might change it for you. You just ask. Just on the while I was mentioning there, and I was looking for um, thing about web apps. Here, I'm just going to put in a link to a site that you can use to um, this site. You can use it to check the kind of privacy and how good a website is at protecting stuff like that. Um, Imagine do, and it's the same price, is it? Okay. So yeah, if you're stuck with Imagine, they really are for broadband. I don't understand why they're so uh, almost anal about protecting their equipment. No other broadband provider usually is, but you know, yeah, it's if you do use Imagine, they'll need to make the changes for you. And of course, if you're if you're in business, um, particularly if you're using any kind of a domestic connection, you really would need to have your own dedicated firewall behind the internet connection from your ISP, because as a business you need to take appropriate steps to protect your protect your setup. So depending on the firewall that's built into an ISP's router isn't really good enough. You would need to put in a dedicated firewall behind that. You can get them, reasonably cheap. I think I've come across a good one there for about, I think it's less than €200, and just it takes a small bit of setup. Now you would need an IT person to be able to set that up for you, but then it's case just put it in, plug it in, and it will work away and protect yourself. Um, Good anti-malware and antivirus apps for mobiles. Um, some would say that iPhones don't need any of this stuff because Apple are great, but they've been known to be hit with malware. But I used to like Avast, but they've gone bad in recent years, so I wouldn't go near them anymore. Um, I believe Sophos have a good one. Um, there's also F-Secure and um, ESET. I think have reasonably good packages. I think the F-Secure one might be the better one of them all, but I haven't actually looked into that. My phones are pretty well secured. I don't install queer apps on them, so I don't usually use antivirus. And so, anything in email. Dun, dun, dun. So, any more questions there, folks? Okay, so there's no more then. Just if anybody wants to connect with me, I am on all these socials. Don't know how I keep on top of them all, but I do somehow, just about. So if oh, hello. Unconnecting browsers. So Yeah, the browsers. There's not a huge amount of choice really. Um, Although some people would say there is, because most of them are based on Chromium. So that would be Chrome, Microsoft Edge, and even Brave, the new privacy um, uh, by default web browser. They're all based on Chrome. Uh, but from a kind of quality and security perspective, yeah, Firefox it has been fairly good down through the years. I used to use it myself a lot, but it seems to be losing popularity for some reason. I'm not sure why, but it has dropped away in recent years, and I think it's fallen below Edge there most recently, which was very surprising because I think Edge is a complete donkey. Um, but um, you know, Chrome is probably the standard, and it's just a case of, I suppose, how you configure it, how you use it, and particularly if you have any extensions on there. Like I have a bunch that of ad blocking and script blocking, and what's the other one? It's kind of a one that does cookie blocking as well. So uh, I suppose it all depends. It's all much for much. So I've recently heard somebody saying to me they've put Brave as their preferred browser, and it's much faster. There's a good reason for that, is that it blocks most of the ads that are coming in from the internet, so there's not as much crap coming down the line. Um, but it's all down to your own personal preference, I suppose. At the end of the day. What approach would you recommend for small companies who need to allow staff to use their own machines? Oof, it's that's I would actually be fairly black and white in that one, John. It's not really appropriate, because if you end up with company data on somebody's personal device, the company no longer has control over that data. And with the GDPR, you absolutely, the company must maintain control and security of the personal data that it is processing for its staff or for its clients. You must ensure the security of that at all times. If that ends up on somebody's personal device, you're uh, you've lost control of it. That data is now on an insecure device. Having said that, there are from for mobile phones, there are applications called mobile device management or enterprise mobility management. They might be called different things, which effectively put a, uh, a partition on the employee's device, which one side will be belonging to the employee, which would be their personal stuff, and on the other side, which will be secured by a PIN or a password. They would have your company email and company files and things like that, so that if they want to gain access to the company data, they put in a PIN or a password, they get access to the data, they work away in it. And what that means then is, if that device gets lost or stolen, or if the employee leaves the company, then you would be able to push a button in a console for this mobile device management solution. You can push a button that wipes the company data from the company side of the employee's phone. So you've always had control over the data, the company data on that. Uh, those are much trickier to put on in place on laptops or desktops belonging to the employees. Um, you would need to have maybe some kind of secure remote access for those employees to be able to come in to the into the company infrastructure. Um, some kind of maybe a virtual desktop set up inside in the office where they can gain access to their data that way, and they just remotely access the data that way. Oh, I accidentally clicked out there. Oops. So let me go back here. One more. What about your many tabs growth? Were you going to ask me a question about your many tabs growth? Oh, okay. All right. Grand job. As I say, I'll stay on here for another few minutes for anybody who has any more questions. And again, to repeat, this has been recorded, will be going up on my website into the blog section along with a copy of the slides. So and of course, I might as well fill in the time. If anybody else wants to ask any questions, they can do so. So, if anybody ever has any questions on anything cyber related or GDPR, by all means, get in touch. It's always, initial consultation is always free, and you get an understanding of what you might need and what I can do for you, and that will be, I say, an initial consultation would always be free. Of course, nowadays it'll have to be over the phone, or we can do on Skype. I say I won't use Zoom for the time being. But if they address their data privacy and data protection issues, I'd be happy to do so then. But yeah, so over the phone, over Skype, whatsoever. The GDPR audit that is now being provided with powered by Cerity. It really is a superb application, really, really comprehensive, and can do, what it'll give you is basically a score of how compliant your business is with GDPR and give you a roadmap on what you need to do to address any gaps in your compliance. And you can, once you've addressed those issues, you can come back and you can go back through the audit really quickly and mark off what you've done, and it'll give you an updated score then on where you are with the GDPR. So it really is excellent. So I don't actually meant to put it on the slides here, but if you go to l2cybersecurity.com/Serity, that's SERITY, it will take you to a page with further information about Serity. There's a link there to a demo site which you can go into and set up a stripped down version of a compliance statement and go through it yourself and see all about it. Serity is actually a self-assessment tool, which is, if you wanted to do it yourself, you can simply go to serity.io and set it up yourself and go through and do your own audit. You don't need me, but happy to help if you do want to do that as well. So just a couple more minutes. So if there is from a cybersecurity training perspective, the training that I deliver is all very it's kind of modular. So we talk about the different types of scams, which if you've seen earlier, we talked about the different types of emails that are trying to lure staff into clicking links. That type of carry on is called phishing. It goes on all day, every day. So I have a whole module on phishing. There's also things about using passwords, good practice with passwords, and multi-factor authentication, how you can set up and use that, and doing backups, the importance of those, and how you can use that to protect your business from things like ransomware, but also from things like fires and floods. Whatever about pandemics, fires and floods still happen, and business premises get damaged. Now, some people would say, well, I've got all my data stored in the cloud, and that's great. The cloud is good, but is it properly secure? And here comes the next thing, is that you might think the cloud is secure, but it's up to you, your responsibility, to make sure that the cloud is properly secured. The cloud providers like Microsoft and Amazon and Google, they all provide facilities to be able to secure your cloud infrastructure, but it's up to you to set them properly and appropriate for your organization. So you need to check that. And from a backups perspective, if you're backing stuff up into the cloud, I would also always recommend that you keep a backup copy offline, in your office, just in case if you get hit with something like a ransomware and it scrambles all the files on your computers, your local desktops, laptops. It will also hit the data that's in the cloud if it's accessible from those computers. So that will all get scrambled as well. Now, some of the cloud providers do provide good backups, but again, it all depends on what way you've configured. If you have an offline copy of the data, maybe on an external hard disk in your office, that you just plug in to your machine, you back up your data, and you plug it back out again. As long as it's offline, the ransomware won't be able to get at it and won't be able to target it. So that's another tip on backups. So if you have any needs, as I say, chat is always free, and so if you want to get in touch with me, I say email info@l2cybersecurity.com or call 087 436-2675, and be happy to chat to you. I'm also on Skype. I am Liam.Lynch at l2cybersecurity.com. So I'm going to kill the stream there now, folks. Thank you for listening. I hope you found it interesting, and stay safe out there. Stay at home, wash your hands, and stay safe.